we'll make sure to get some better signage than the non-existent signage that's currently here. So, but thank you all for making the trip. It's good to see everybody. We're excited to have you all here. See some new faces in the room, so thank you guys for joining us. We are here this week talking about negotiating deals, how to identify and qualify motivated sellers. We've got two amazing guests here with us, Teresa and David, and we'll do some introductions here in a minute, but let's go ahead and roll through Grid. You want to take?
Yeah, so Grid, we're a globalist real estate community, investors working with other investors. We're not gurus, we're a group of people doing real estate deals. Yeah, mission right along the same lines. We're here to collaborate, like-minded people, build wealth, and really create impact here in the communities. Welcome all investors of all levels. It's important, no matter where you're at on your journey, come on in. It definitely helps. There's always something to inspire the next person, the next story. You'll be surprised how quickly people gravitate and start working deals together. So, Grid's got a bigger plan. We're in several communities. I think we're actually in 15 states now.
Yep.
So it's popping up. We got it in Richmond all the way out to LA. We went down to St. Pete. There was a new chapter launched down there. So it kind of gets us a little bit of a global aspect where if you've got friends or family or you've got an interest in another market, basically gives you a foot in the door a little bit, where you can strike up some conversations, and there's some Facebook groups so we can all kind of collaborate if we want to get into other markets. Leaders intro. So I'm Gage Wilson. I own Envision Group. We have a building materials supply store in Winchester. We focus on investor relations for real estate transactions. I also have a Class A contracting license here in the whole Shenandoah Valley. I think we're servicing like 7 counties now. And we've also started another company in Reston, Virginia called Market Ready Remodeling. So working with real estate agents, working with investors, and really just creating opportunities. And then we've got Mike here.
Yep. I'm Mike Capello, wholesaler, investor, do some flipping, also have a real estate license in Virginia and West Virginia, but most of my activity is wholesale, creative finance. Like I said, do some fixing and flipping, and we're buying property in Warren, Frederick, really up and down 81, building a portfolio out here of rental property, short-term, mid-term, long-term. So kind of do a little bit of everything. And building a team, my outward-facing, like sales and marketing, cash buyer model, Sell Simply. We're building a team, looking to add some pieces to that. So if you know anybody interested in real estate acquisitions, send them my way. Having some conversations with some folks, bringing some folks into my world, and looking to grow and expand Sell Simply. Along with Grid, we've got a big plan for kind of like Grid Corp, which is Grid, Casa, which is our real estate retail business, Sell Simply, which is our acquisition business. We've got a lending business, Simply Funded, property management, and Engage just joined us with Market Ready Remodeling. So we've kind of got a big ecosystem that we're expanding really across the country. So that's a little bit about me. I did want to make one announcement before we get started. We sent out an email last week. Jen and Amanda, who's I guess on her way, have been a huge part of what we've built here with Grid Shenandoah Valley, and they've got an opportunity and a new plan with Cash Flow Breakfast Club. They're going to be starting a new real estate group in the mornings. Remind me of when your meetup is.
We're launching in June, Tuesday 4th, and meeting at 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. So for the early risers that want to get together and talk about real estate, we've had a lot of people, unable to make the evening meeting. So finding a time frame that, accommodates the early risers before work kind of thing. We will be meeting in Front Royal on Main Street at the movie theater. And it's the Front Royal chapter of Cash Flow Breakfast Club, focusing a lot on education, networking, a lot like what Grid does. It's something that, I love Grid. I love everyone here and the community that's being built. And it's just a way to kind of expand on what we're already doing and kind of bring more people into the same conversation and build wealth together. So if you want more information, get with me and make sure I have your info and I can send you everything to join us there.
Well, thank you, and thank you for everything that you've done
Yeah.
here. And this is very collaborative. Like we're very much going to stay connected, and we expect Jen and Amanda to support us here and see them here, and vice versa. So we're not getting rid of them. We're just visiting some new opportunities and supporting each other along the way. So, we may also be looking for some additional leadership with Grid Shenandoah Valley. So if you know anybody or you're interested in leading with us on our journey here, building this community here, let us know. And we're happy to have those conversations with you guys. So I wanted to, we've got a smaller group here today, so I wasn't going to go around the room like we normally do, because we've usually got like 40 or 50 people and it takes forever. But since we have a smaller group here, we'll go ahead and do that. Quick intros, name, what you do, what you're looking for, if you have a deal or something to promote business-wise or other. Gage mentioned earlier, like this is about community for us. We want to know who's in the room. It's important that everybody knows who's in the room, so you know who you want to connect with, do deals with, whatever. So again, since we have a smaller group, we'll just kind of buzz around the room real quick, 30-second pitch, and then we'll introduce our guests, and then we'll get started. So why don't we start right here in the front?
David Conner. I live here a couple miles away from here. I'm retired, but I fix up houses in the past and become a landlord. So,
Awesome.
looking to buy that, so sometimes.
Hi, my name is Chris Carroll. I work with Gate of Adhesion as a rec corporation, and I'm here to learn as much as I can because you can never get enough.
Hi, I am Alicia Harris. I am a licensed realtor in Virginia and West Virginia for Keller Williams. I'm also an investor. Just here to learn similar, like nuggets and things I don't know and what I can already add to the little level of knowledge I do have in whatever area, right? Just happy to be here.
Thank you.
My name is Laura Buchan. I'm from Warrenton, and I kind of just started in the real estate. I have a couple of investment properties, looking to build my portfolio and make some connections here.
Great.
I'm Stephanie Judy. I have a full-time job, but I also flip furniture on the side. I'm looking to expand that into something as I'm getting older for the rest of my years, to quit that full-time job and do something fun.
Sheldon Judy, just electrician by trade. Just here just to learn as much as we can about the real estate business and possibly maybe get into it in the future.
Cool. Thanks for joining. In the back?
I am Bryson Mockery. I'm 18. I'm building a lawn care and landscaping business. Figured I'd put my name out there. If anybody needs any help, you can come talk to me afterwards. And figured I can learn something about real estate investing along here.
Love it. Where's the business?
Winchester.
Cool.
Mockery. I am starting up a fencing and shade business. Been in business for years and years. Decided it's time to go out on my own. I have a few rental units now. I'd always like to add some more, and I'm here because I've done sales an awful lot. Negotiations, everything. So
Great.
I'm over there right now.
Appreciate it.
Nathan Barron, I'm a realtor licensed in Virginia, work primarily here in Front Royal, Winchester, out to Loudoun County. And youth pastor by night, so I'm interested in investing where I can learn, and took a course with Omni, the guy who created the Cash Flow Breakfast Club, so we're doing another one of those here in June, so anyway, that's me.
Thanks, Nathan.
My name is Mike Smith. I live in Middletown. I've been doing mostly on the creative finance side with funding lately, and I'm trying to get into being a private money broker and learning whatever I can here tonight.
Awesome. Good to see you, Mike. Corey?
Hi, I'm Corey Shinoka. I'm actually in Harrisonburg. I primarily do property management, doing some flips now, and looking for more multifamily rentals, maybe commercial, anything to get out of property management.
That story.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Charlie Schrantz. I've been a friend of Dave's since 2006. I own 3 companies, an insurance agency for the last 14 years, a prepaid legal plan company that has the hospital and about 15 other groups since 2002, and also a cash analysis and debt acceleration debt program. I'm looking, I'm coming into an awful lot of money this year that I need to shelter, and Dave has always encouraged me. This is the right time for me to get involved with the Burr method and really plug into the methodology that Dave's been promoting for years to me. Looking forward to learning from him.
Very cool.
My name is Nate Williamson. I'm David's son. I go to Liberty University down in Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm a student there, but I also do some property management for him down in Lynchburg, and I'm looking to get into creative finance as soon as possible, always looking for deals. Just kind of whatever comes my way, you know, so you're never too young is what I'm thinking, so.
My name's Abe Silas. I'm with Active Pure Technologies. I've been an investor, homeowner for several decades. The reason I'm here is just to introduce people to the #1 air sanitizing system in the world. Jennifer Bond and Amanda Slate's been using this for at least 3 years with great success. It's hard to sell what you can smell, or hard to rent out or resell what you can smell. So we take out any kinds of odors from anything, from all the way to skunk, whatever. And I work with investors as well, so if you have a difficult problem, please let me know. I'd be glad to hand out my cards. Thank you.
My name's Jim Smalls. I am recently retired from the U.S. Forest Service, 2.5 months now, and just now getting into the real estate game. Applied for my license, haven't gotten it yet from the state of Virginia, so brand new. Hopefully here in another 3 or 4 weeks I'll have my license in hand. I'll have a license.
Boyd and Ralph, we both real estate agent from Bristol. Right now we're both retired, so we can just spend our investments properly.
Great. Thanks for joining.
I'm Jennifer Bond. We have 515 properties. I'm a real estate investor. I fix and flip. I'm getting ready to finish a flip at the moment. Hopefully we'll be done by Friday. So if you're looking for a 1935 farmhouse that's completely renovated in 2025, then let me know. I also buy and hold. I have residential and commercial rentals. I wholesale depending on the deal that I have and what else I have going on. And I also house hack. I've been doing that for 22 years. And that's actually what got me into real estate as an accidental investor. And then I realized I love this. And then I've been a co-leader of Grid for about a year now and getting ready to start a chapter with Cash Flow. And I've been in for a while, but I feel like I'm just getting started at the same time. So thanks for coming.
I'm Frank Ortato with Homes for Humanity. We're out of Winchester. We do fixing flips and also holds. We have a current project right now going on in Winchester, and we're also looking for a second one. And just here to get some new words from wisdom from David, and just, always come away with some kind of nuggets here. It's good to be back.
Thanks, Brian. All right, you want to hit the slides? Little intro. Important legal stuff, don't sue us. We're just talking about what we think we know. Do your own due diligence. We might have some photography. If you don't want your picture taken, put on a mask. All right, David, please introduce yourself, sir.
Sure. Don't mind, I'll stand in this part. David Williamson, and I am a real estate investor. And I also own an IT company in Winchester, Virginia, Custom Computers and Winchester Wireless. We're a fixed wireless internet service provider. So I've been investing in real estate for about 20 years at this point. I'm a buy and hold real estate investor. I focus primarily on creative finance. I own 47 units today, commercial, residential, long-term, short-term, vacant land, not included in that 47 number. We self-manage everything that we have. I know it sounds like a lot. I will tell you, the more that you have, the easier it gets to maintain. I do have staff now today that we're able to actually do a lot of our work internally. That wasn't always the case. So hopefully what I can bring to the table tonight is I have a lot of experience with the topic of negotiating a deal. There's a lot of different ways to negotiate deals. We're all going to have very unique aspects of how we've gone about doing what we do. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it other than to not do it. So you got to get out there and you got to take action. If you take action, one of my mentors from the early 1990s when I was in a network marketing company by the name of Excel Communications, he used to say, if you do something long enough, you will be successful. And he also said, and he was just a good old boy, high school basketball coach from Kentucky, and he had a very southern drawl, and he would say, if you're going to go rabbit hunting, pick one rabbit and chase it, right? And so that's the only way you're going to be able to catch it. So I will tell you that whatever you do, you need to be focused on doing it 100%, regardless of what it is. So thank you for the intro. I appreciate the invite tonight.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Madame?
Well, my name's Teresa. I'm a real estate investor, and I've been investing for 23 years. I started flipping houses. I started with creative deals for single-family residents. I have 5 apartment buildings, 5 mobile home parks. I have a website. I have people that own me. The best advice I can tell you, 2 things, is be consistent, like David said, and always treat your partners, friends, folks you're negotiating with like they're people. Like you want to be true, it takes you as far as you need to go. That's all.
Great advice. Thank you.
That's
All right. So I really want, come on in, grab a seat. I got you. The purpose of this is really to be engaging with everybody here. So if you guys have questions throughout, we're just kind of do like a little bit of a roundtable discussion. We've got some questions, some prompts, but if you guys have questions as we're talking, please raise your hand or chime in. We want David and Teresa to be able to answer your guys' questions, and we're going to kind of lead the conversation, but please join in, and we'll just kind of get going with the topic today, which is motivated sellers. How do we identify motivated sellers? And so I'm curious, because as you said, there's no right way, no wrong way. What is your definition of a motivated seller?
So, first, I appreciate that question. I'm probably a little unique in the respect that real estate for me over the last 20 years has really been kind of a hobby. And I know I say that tongue-in-cheek because I've done very well with it over the last 20 years. But the fact remains is that my pace has been my pace only because it's been a hobby. If I was doing this full-time, I would be significantly more aggressive than I have been over the years. So for me, I think motivated sellers, the best definition that I can give it as far as the way that I look at it are people that find themselves in distressed situations. And those situations can vary a lot, you know, whether they're in a situation where they have to sell the property because, you know, of financial hardship, or they have to sell the property because of a divorce or separation situation, or a couple of cases that I've had, you know, where they had adult children that were living in the home that they actually had difficulty with getting them out. And so one of the ways to get them out was just to sell the house, because then everybody needs to leave. So, I mean, there are definitely telltale signs to look at when you're looking for the motivated seller. The problem a lot of times is, how do you come across the motivated seller? Because they're typically not advertising that I'm a motivated seller. Maybe they are if they're posting something on Facebook Marketplace or on Craigslist, but a lot of it really has to do with your network, right? And so for the last 20 years, especially since the advent of social media, you know, I have made it purposeful in my intent to make it known in my social media marketing what I do when it comes to real estate. And so when people in my circle think about real estate, I want them to think about me. When they run into somebody who's in a situation that they might need to sell a house, I want to be top of mind awareness, right? So I talk about my deals on Facebook or Instagram or, you know, whatever social media platform. And, you know, as my son would say, I'm an old head, so Facebook is probably more my speed than some of the newer social media platforms that I don't completely understand 100%. But I will say, most of the people that are referring to me are in my same generation, and so Facebook is a good platform, I believe, to do that. So for me, top of mind awareness, I think, is the most important piece, because I want people referring to me, right? I might not be interested in that deal, but if I'm not, then there's so many other people that I can refer them to if I wanted to wholesale that deal, which I never have done. But if I wasn't interested in it, I'm a connector at the end of the day. I want to create a win-win scenario. So if you contact me and that deal doesn't make sense mathematically for me and I'm not interested in it, I might contact Frank. And I might say, hey, I got this deal, here's what the math looks like. Is this something you'd be interested in, right? I'm not looking for anything from Frank, except for Frank to remember the next time around that I gave him a deal, and so he's going to be more likely to maybe refer something to me. It's a giver's gain mentality, that B&I, you know, type mentality.
So would you say then your main lead source then is referral?
Yes, over the years I would say my main source is referrals, number one. Number two is going to be Zillow. I love Zillow. I love the hard function in Zillow that I can go and I can mark properties in entire neighborhoods. I will literally mark entire streets if I'm interested in a neighborhood, and it will notify me if a property is coming on the market soon in that area. If I mark it, there is a limit on how many homes you can mark. I have found out. So occasionally I have to purge through some of the ones that I'm no longer interested in so that I can make sure that I stay under that number. But I really do love that function in Zillow, honestly. I've bought properties specifically in the Lynchburg area on specific streets. I got properties just right across the street from one another because I've just gone right down that whole road and I've marked them and I'm notified as soon as they're going on the market.
So are you looking for someone who's selling, it's the sale by owner on Zillow, or
Both.
resale market MLS?
Yeah, so both. I'm kind of unique in the respect that I will pay retail for things sometimes, because sometimes it's not about the price, but it's about the cash on cash return. You know, I'm an old school Carlton Sheets guy, and Carl Sheets used to say, I give you my price if, you know, I mean, I'll give you your price if you give me my terms.
Yep.
And so I'm a big one on terms, right? I mean, people look at all the different math that has got to make sense for them to buy a house. I say the most important number to look at is the cash on cash return.
Yep.
And if I have to put basically zero in to buy that house, I mean, who cares? Because my cash on cash return is basically infinite. Even if I'm only making $100 a month.
Well, and also, if they don't like your offer, you can just go and find another place to make an offer. The thing is really about making an offer.
Yep.
Making an offer is plural, so
Yep.
that's how.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Just get it
that.
out there,
Yep.
so.
And I always like to tell people too that the buyer doesn't have to buy, but the seller does have to sell. So never be afraid to walk away from something that doesn't make sense.
And Teresa, what is in your world of kind of apartments and mobile home parks, what do these motivated sellers look like, and where do you find most of your leads?
Actually, they don't always look like anything. You have to go through the referral numbers. So if we're talking about like single family res, if we're talking about single family res, the best thing to do that I've done, and I still do it, because I will still do single family res, is driving for dollars. You get out, you drive around, and you just find their address, and you can skip trace them and find out and talk to them. You know, go up to their door, I'm not suggesting trespassing, but go to their door and talk to them, knock on the door. That's how I got a fair number of properties, other than repeated offers on the same property. Like say it was listed on the MLS, and they didn't like my offer, I would just keep making offers until they don't want to sell it to anybody or they're selling it to me. So, I mean like 8 times, I just keep making the offer.
So are you going up in offer or down
No, I
in
won't
offer or changing your
just a
terms?
little bit, yeah, until they just don't want to sell it, or they do want to sell it. And if they sell it to me, great, or I might, it might be a year before I get that house. I have a duplex with a commercial space in Stafford County, and I get $3,500 a month from it. And that's just for making offers. And just say you are driving around, like on your way home from work, take a different way home and go drive through your neighborhoods and be really niche about it. Look in this neighborhood, because the ARV is different in this neighborhood versus that neighborhood. And look up on Zillow, you don't need a hop straight with MLS. You can just generally go by the estimates and you can see the tax assessments. And then you can see what each house is worth roughly. And then when you see a house that looks like distressed in some way, the lawn hasn't been mowed, or roof looks nasty, or listen, I for real will do this. I will just take a different way home. You can do this, and you can get properties. You just have to be relentless. That's the other part of it. You gotta be persistent over the course of years. I'm saying it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest things honestly have worked the best for me, which is like driving for dollars, door knocking, just picking up the phone and having conversations with people. It is, that's the hard part, is that barrier of like either putting yourself in front of somebody or picking up the phone and calling people that you don't know and asking if they want to sell their property.
Well, the good part of going to their houses is that they see you're a person.
Yeah.
And they cannot answer the door, but almost everybody has like a ring camera. They can see you. I don't look offensive. I just look like a little girl, whatever, and that's fine. But I mean, hey, if they remember you, great. Hey, if you're an agent, you can leave your card. Maybe you'll get a listing from it. You know what can happen. I'm not an agent, but there was one place in Prince William County. I went and knocked on their door, and they didn't want to talk to me like face to face, but they talked to me through the ring camera. Well, like I don't know, 2 weeks later, I noticed that it was sold for something like $3,000 above assessed value in Prince William County. That's crazy, right? But it also needed so much done to it, maybe like 120, of work, because it was original. But hey, worth a try. I'll just try it again on a different house. Just make an offer. You make like 100 offers, you're gonna get something. I mean, I hate to sound weird, but that's what happens.
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game, totally. And same with a storage place that we bought. We bought it on terms, and that's just what happens. People want to sell it. They're distressed for some reason. Emotionally, like their spouse doesn't want to do it. Financially, like around here, there's a lot of military. Maybe they have to move, and they can't afford to have 2 houses. Or they did something like they had a mortgage, and then they decided they wanted to get solar on top of their house, which, whatever you feel about that, that's just an extra payment, which they probably can't afford, so they probably need to sell, and then they can sell freely. And you could probably find some way to leverage that.
Does everybody know what Teresa and David are talking about when they say buying or selling on terms? Does everybody understand what that means? No? Let's talk about terms briefly.
Okay. So when that term is used, we're talking about seller's equity, right? So when someone's looking to sell a property, one of the first things that I do is I go, I buy a lot in Winchester, Frederick County, and then Lynchburg and some other areas as well. But Winchester City, Frederick County, Lynchburg City, I actually have online record access, so I can look up title records right from my computer or from my phone, right? And if I'm interested in looking at purchasing a property or even considering it, the first thing that I do is I pull title information before I ever meet with them, because I want to know what does the current deed of trust or mortgage structure look like on the property, right? So typically, you're not going to have every piece of mortgage information in there. Usually the rate is not going to be in there. You'll normally have the amount that they originally financed and the length of the amortization, and then usually fill in the blank with Google or ChatGPT with what is the rate in that time period when they did their initial finance. So run an amortization calculator at that point and figure out if they made the minimum payment, where they would be today. So now you know how much roughly they owe on the house, and current market value is going to be whatever it is, right? So now, between where they are and how much they owe and what that market value is, that's their equity, right? They can lend that equity to you. They can be your bank, right, for part of the proceeds of that purchase. And this is a skill that it takes time to get comfortable in your own skin with, but like she was saying about making offers, you never get what you don't ask for.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I will tell you, in all of the creative finance deals that I have done, there has been one common denominator, and I bet it's been the same for you too. Not one of them was ever advertised as creative finance option, right? I created those, literally, by going through and having a conversation with the seller, potentially with the seller's realtor, to find out why are they selling, what kind of equity do they have in the property, what are they planning on doing with that equity if they were to sell the property. If I could collateralize that and then you can lend it to me and you can earn interest off of it, you don't have to pay the capital gains all at once, you can get the capital gains incrementally year over year in your taxes. All of these different things become hot button items, right? I've got one that I just finished doing in Lynchburg. It was complete seller financing on the whole deal. Over 4 equal payments. I had to put 25% down when I bought the property. They're financing the rest of the house. I have to make one payment a year, one time a year for the next 3 years, right? That's a good deal for me. Why? Because I didn't have to get the bank involved. What was the hot button item for them? They didn't want to pay capital gains all at once because they were retired. It's the last rental property that they had. And they came back to me when I asked about creative finance. I was only fishing for a 15 to 20% second. That's it. Because I just didn't want to tie up any of my money. Well, as it was, I had to put $40,000 down, which is more than I really wanted to. But I didn't have to go to the bank and get any of the rest of the money, right? So I was able to leverage their money that they had in because they didn't owe anything on the property. But they told me what their hot button was, which was capital gains. So they originally only offered for me to do 3 equal payments. And I went back and asked for 4 because that gave them another year to spread out the capital gains. So did I know that they would say yes to that before I even offered? Absolutely, because they had already told me capital gains was their hot button. So why not drag it out another year? So I was able to use all of their money. They became the bank in that deal. So I mean, I still basically would have had to put 20% down if I went to the local credit union down there, right? So maybe I could have flipped that and got them to take the second, and then I could have got the bank to take the first, and I wouldn't have tied up any of my cash. I decided not to because it was a quick close, and they were ready to go, and so I had the money to do it, so I did it. That's unconventional for me. 20 years ago, obviously, I wouldn't have done that because I wouldn't have the 40 grand. But today, I do because, I have plenty of equity over the properties, so I just pulled it out, right, like a line of credit from somewhere, and used it in that capacity. So when we talk about terms, we're talking about how do you get access to the seller's funds. Don't be afraid to ask for it, because in most cases, they don't have a plan for those funds. They don't, but they're interested in selling that house. And if you can offer them a quick buy opportunity, especially if it's close to or at asking price, you'd be surprised how many people will be open to having that conversation. I'm not sure what your experience is.
No, I agree with you completely, and I think that, one thing you have to think about is, like, if you're uncomfortable with this, some steps you can take to get more comfortable is do it for things that are not related to real estate. Like when you go buy something, just ask if that's the best price, or try to play in a different way, or anything like that. Like you said, if you don't ask, you're just never gonna know. But one thing that came to mind when you were talking about is, I think that in our society, we're like dopamine based, we have our phone and ADHD, but really we gotta sit back and think about and listen to what people are telling you about what they want. Like they will almost always somehow tell you what they need / want / what's the problem. And then see if you can tailor that to what they need.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great transition into negotiating, right? When we're negotiating, my take on negotiating is I'm just listening to what this person is telling me and taking in all the information and then delivering a solution that solves their problem, whether it's capital gains or foreclosure or probate or whatever. We just are asking good questions, listening to what they're telling us, and then providing them with a solution. That's my negotiation tactic, which is just giving them what they're asking for. We let the seller solve their own problem, and then we present them with the solution. We like to kind of look at it as calibrate, educate, facilitate. So in the beginning, you're calibrating, you're listening, you're asking questions, then you're educating them. Well, here are the options based on what you're telling me. This sounds like, this problem with capital gains could be solved with seller finance, right? We can spread your tax liability out over a year or 3 years or 5 years or 10, however long we can spread, negotiate with the seller. And when we talk about selling on terms, all we're talking about is buying creatively without going to a bank and getting traditional financing. We're setting the terms with the seller of this purchase, whether that's with seller finance or with subject to or some other kind of creative method of solving the problem. So let's dig into the negotiation piece a little bit more. Slides. I'm curious, we talk a little bit about circumstance, which is like there's emotional circumstance and there's sometimes physical circumstances, either health or physical conditions with a property. But you guys are talking about buying properties, on market or with sellers that maybe I wouldn't consider necessarily a motivated seller, somebody that's in foreclosure or somebody that's, has a really distressed property or is having health problems or something like that. Like they've got a property on market, but they're motivated in a different way, right? They're motivated because they're a tired landlord and they need to sell a property, but they don't want to, have a $500,000 or $300,000 capital gain on there.
Right, well, that's a strong motivation though, because think about it, like there are a lot of people that have properties and they don't want to increase their income because that will affect how much they pay in Medicare or how much they get for Social Security. So that's a big factor. And the other thing is, I'm not young, but I'm not a baby boomer. There are a lot of baby boomers that own property and they want to sell, but they don't want to get hit with a big tax bill. That was the case with the storage facility, and also same thing for mobile home parks. But it's good. If you can help one, maybe you can help them again. Something I like to do is when I see something that's listed on the MLS is I will call the listing agent. So if you call the listing agent, they are more likely to work with you. MLS isn't my favorite thing to do. They are more likely to work with you than if you get another agent involved because they get that commission. They get the both parts of the commission. So I don't know, how do you feel about that?
So, yes, I always like to reach out to listing agents with one market properties. I don't like to give up the buyer's agent commission though. So I will typically negotiate that in as a seller concession if I represent myself. Rather than my buyer's agent getting paid, I'll take it at closing. But I do agree that they're very open to having a conversation with you and sharing information because there's not that wall of realtor to realtor at that point.
And you don't hear what's going on. If you just talk to that agent, you get more. Plus, you can also learn more about that agent. Maybe they might talk to you later or bring other properties. There was a flip that I did in Stafford, and the agent talked to me. And so I learned more about that agent. It turns out that for a long time she was not a property manager, but she brought me renters because I was not a property manager. And that was easy for me. It was a good connection. So just keep those relationships and listen to what they're telling you too, because you might get something from a realtor, like a contractor referral or a service referral or something else that you need, that you might need later.
Just kind of piggybacking on that too, for anybody in here that's not a realtor. So I'm 20 years into this business and I'm not a realtor. I know more than most of the realtors that I've dealt with over the last 20 years. So the question begs, why am I not a realtor? Because when I come to negotiate with you on the purchase of your house, I'm Joe the plumber. And I don't have to disclose to you that I'm a licensed real estate professional and I get paid to do this for a living. So I have first mover advantage because you don't know anything about me other than what I disclose to you. You don't even know that I've already done a title search on your house and I know how much roughly that you owe on your property, right? And I will tell you just a funny story real quickly about that. I had an off-market property that we did wind up purchasing. We got seller financing on, and I did the title search and I knew about how much equity that they had on this property. And then when it came time that I was sitting in the living room negotiating with the husband and the wife, come to find out, he was a retired commercial banker. And so he had been in the commercial lending business for pretty much all of his adult life. And so it became kind of a comical conversation because he was very intrigued by how did I know how much they owed on their property. And I didn't know, of course, what his background was. So it took us down a whole other rabbit hole, which we had some fun with. But that was an interesting conversation. And we did wind up getting about $35,000 of seller financing on a 10-year amortization for a second mortgage on that particular property. We did have to put a little bit of cash in there because he wasn't willing to finance the whole down payment. And the main reason he wasn't was because he was a commercial lender and he wanted me to put some skin in the game, which I respected. And I mean, I had kind of been beaten in my own game to a certain extent.
That's okay, part of that baby.
Yeah, which was fine, but I was fine with doing that because he was still willing to bring some to the table, which meant that it was $35,000 less that I had to bring to the table in order to buy it. But that was just kind of a funny story that I did that, and when we started talking about it, he was kind of like, how do you know how much I owe my house?
You mentioned that you sometimes act as a buyer's agent yourself, and
Sure.
How does that work if you're not a real estate agent?
Because I can negotiate a seller concession to closing. So if the seller, if the buyer's agent would get paid half of the commission, which obviously the world has changed since August of last year, buyer's agents have to fight to get anything anymore. And if they're going to get it, they're typically going to get it from me as the buyer, which I don't like to give it because that's more of a, I got to pay closing. So you've got to negotiate that in as part of the deal. Otherwise, you're funding it to your buyer anymore, right? A lot of times.
That's true, especially since the change.
Yeah.
But all he's saying is that he negotiates with the realtor and they work out the situation to not pay that much. Yeah. And that's exactly why I don't have my license, although sometimes I think it would be fun to, like I could do that, but then I'd have to disclose everything. That would be, and I'd be subject to different rules. I'd also be subject to different rules with my rentals. But there could be pros to that too.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
I can speak to that because I am licensed and I wholesale.
But you can wholesale, I can't.
Well, now in Virginia, it's a requirement. But I have to disclose that I'm licensed in these conversations with property owners, but, it's just part of my, conversation that I'm having when I sit down with someone. Hey, just so you know, I do hold an active real estate license in Virginia. I use it mainly for my own investing purposes. I'm not a listing agent, I'm not a buyer's agent, but I do have a license, I'm required to disclose it. That's it. Nobody ever says anything about it. I've never run into any issues with it personally.
Yeah, I'm not discouraging people.
not to
Yeah,
get it.
yeah,
you know?
no, but you
I'm
can
just
do it
explaining
without,
the reason
though.
why I
Right.
haven't, because it's never been something that's interested me, because it does give me, I feel a little bit of an advantage when I'm negotiating. Going back to your question is, so we're talking about negotiating the deal, right? The topic of tonight.
Thank you.
So you can negotiate anything and everything in the deal, right? Negotiate things you don't even want. So let them negotiate it back out. I want all the furniture. I don't care about your furniture, but I want it all. Because I want you to get it, you can negotiate it back out, and then you're gonna win, right? I want the Winnebago in the backyard. I don't care about the Winnebago, but just throw it in there, everything, including the kitchen sink. Because now you have something to be able to work with, because they have got to feel like they've got some wins coming back to them. And if everything is all one-sided and you're just gonna beat them up, beat them up, beat them up, it's not gonna be a amicable transaction. So getting seller concession at closing is a great way to be able to get a discount on the property without them thinking that you're getting a discount on the property, right? So like I had one, and you were talking about be patient to buy a property. I have a multi-tenant commercial residential property here in Stevens City over by the water tower. And my realtor, a friend of mine, he showed it to me many years back. And we met with the seller. He was friends with the seller. Obviously, he was a listing agent. And we couldn't put a deal together. They were just not motivated enough. And so 2.5 years later, the property still hadn't sold. It went back on the market again with another commercial listing agent. I contacted my same realtor friend, who was the original listing agent, and I said, hey, this property's back on the market. But let's go take a look at it, because maybe they're in a different place. So long story short, they were in a different place. And 2.5 years later, I bought the property. So I bought the property with basically no money out of my pocket. This is a $600,000 property. I agreed to pay $610,000 for the property and have them pay $10,000 in seller concession for closing. Because now I got my closing costs wrapped into the deal, right? So I don't have to pay $10,000. On top of that, I got them to agree to 25% seller held second, 30-year amortization, 5-year balloon. I had the money to be able to put it in, so $150,000. I put it in. 3 days later, I got 150-something thousand back because I did back-to-back closings between the first and the second, 2 different settlement agencies. And I wound up walking away with that deal with $3,800 in my pocket, and that property cash flows about $100,000 a year in net operating income for me. So in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad, Mike's dad, he talks about to Robert, he says that you will get paid commensurate with the complexity of problems that you're able to solve. The more difficult the problem is that you're able to solve, the more money that you will make. That is by far the most difficult deal that I've ever done. But I would do one a year if I could, because I mean it's a cash cow. I had to work hard for it. I had to go to 5 banks in order to get somebody to finance it. But I didn't give up. And today, I mean, he knows, it's my top cash flowing property. And I still haven't had to pay the second. The second's coming due the end of this year. And I'm just going to refinance it. It's appreciated enough because I brought all the rents up to market. They were way below market, right? And I bought it in 2020, right at the heat of COVID, when everybody's paralyzed with fear. I'm out there buying property, right? I bought, I don't know, 4 or 5 properties that year. And now, 5 years later, it's appreciated so much that when my 5-year arm comes due with Bank of Charlestown, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to refinance the first and the second into a whole new brand new person. I never will have had to pay any of my own money to take ownership of that property.
Couple questions.
Go ahead.
I just want to speak to what Dave was just telling all of us here. Because of Dave's interest in helping me and all this, I gave up my real estate license I had. I worked from 2004 to 2011 and dumped it as soon as Dave and I started talking because of liability. And as a real estate agent, it's unethical to go behind the sign. But I don't care about that sign when I'm an independent investor. So out of the 6 homes that I've bought and flipped and sold, 3 of them came as a result of going behind the sign, finding the owner, doing everything Dave just said, All of this research is online, it's all available to you. And I'm gonna tell you, it's almost like taking candy from a baby. Because when you know all the mathematics behind the deal, and then you know their motivations, and you're asking a lot of great questions, I mean, Dave is not even telling you 10% of everything he's had success doing. I own two real estate, I had two clients because I specialize in Medicare and financial planning. And my attorney, George Glass, strongly advised me not to buy two of my properties that are two clients' properties because of conflict of interest, potential conflict. So I went to Dave and I said, we got a homeowner here that's got a son living in the house, total loser, deadbeat, won't get out of the house. What can you do for her? And he met with her and closed that deal. And the other one that I had was a wonderful client. They had a reverse mortgage on a home, and they were just all sorts of crazy finances. And Dave went in there and just totally solved the day for them. I mean, they just loved Dave. Both of them are dead now. But Dave, I'll just tell you what, I'm so excited sitting here listening. So my question was, I'm going to have my wife get her real estate license, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to have any, I want total separation of any acquisitional properties. And then the other thing is I want to, Dave can talk about LLC structure on your investment properties, your home, and maybe even trusts, and as it relates to protecting your butt from liability. That would be great for me. But this has been awesome so far tonight.
I don't know if you want me to touch on it now or.
We can briefly touch on.
Yeah, I will just briefly.
Because that's a long conversation.
I'll give you the 30,000.
And then I want to get into kind of some practical negotiation.
Yes, I agree. So he's asking about separation of liability as far as having LLCs, trustees, that nature. I want to be careful not to get into the trust conversation because the trust conversation is an entire seminar in itself, right? Just know that if you don't know, you need to learn. As far as the LLCs are concerned, it's wise to utilize the structure of an LLC when you're acquiring investment properties because you're able to compartmentalize away your liability, right? So here in the state of Virginia, very easy to set up an LLC and it's very inexpensive, $100 with state corporation commissions, $50 annual renewal. It's a very simple process. You can do it yourself. If you don't know how to do it, pay an attorney one time to teach you how to do it, give you the articles of organization, an operating agreement to be able to use as a template to file. What is the benefit of doing that? If you're an investor and you're looking at being able to do investor type loans, like a DSCR type of loan structure, or anything that is going to be just based on the income of that particular property, you're going to want to be familiar with LLCs because those type of loan products are typically going to want to loan to an entity. They're not going to want to loan to you individually. And there are some legalities behind why that is the case with those type of loan products, which we're not going to dive into, right? So just know whether you set up one LLC to have 10 properties in, or you have one LLC per property, whatever it is, being able to somewhat separate the liability to compartmentalize is wise. For me, I have an LLC for every property that I own. It is not very difficult to track them because I use QuickBooks. QuickBooks has this function called class, and you can put every property under its own individual class. You can run a separate P&L on it, all within one company file. So having multiple LLCs that are pass-through entities does not complicate your tax return at all. It's just there for the separation liability, and that's been a whole thing.
So you have one LLC per property?
I have, each of my properties is owned by its own entity. And for example, I have a property at 1008 Lindsay Street in Lynchburg. The property's LLC is 1008 Lindsay LLC.
So I'm gonna say this, I did that, I did not enjoy that. I felt like a tax return or paying the fees for all that was annoying. But I would if I had to do that again, and so that way I would have an LLC for each property. What I do is I have, each property is in a land trust, and the trust is, basically has a beneficiary that is a Wyoming holding company. The manager of the property is a different LLC based in Virginia, and then those things I don't have to pay, I don't have to have a bank account, be strict like that, it can just be through one Virginia LLC. So that's what I do because I don't wanna have filing fees and all this, I just had no desire to do that. That's how I started, and that's what I do now. For the commercial real estate, that's a whole different thing, but it's kind of similar. So that's just how I do it.
Yep. There's more than one way to
Oh,
skin a
yeah,
cat.
more than one way to do it.
Also-
Seek qualified legal advice.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Virginia apparently has these series LLCs, which is new. But I was advised not to use them because of it, so.
Yeah. I'll have to look at our topic list, but this is a topic that we do discuss. We'll discuss it another time. You got one more question and then,
I
sorry,
always
Dave.
use Zillow to find places, I always use cash.
Okay.
So, but I always feel like by the time it gets to Zillow, I'm competing with everybody.
Sometimes.
And, but I always get these letters from people that say, oh, we'll buy, I'll buy your house. But there's one, are looking for distressed properties. Distressed means desperate person. I'm gonna find the desperate person before it gets to Zillow, because then there's lots of eyes on it.
Okay, so
I have to compete.
go to find a pre-foreclosure list or list of heirs from your county.
Well, that's on Zillow too, pre-foreclosure. I think.
No, they don't get to Zillow until they get further away. You can go to your counties and find a pre-foreclosure list.
Oh,
It takes a little bit and you have to skip trace them, but you
You
can
have to
find.
what?
Skip trace them.
Skip
You have to find their contact information. Based
There are
on-
companies that specialize in doing skin tracing.
I can do that too.
You can do that online.
Yeah.
But really, I think the better answer for you, at least in my opinion, is get into these groups. You have people that are wholesalers and build your contact database of wholesalers and get your name on that list of wholesalers.
What I've found with that is that they're trying to sell you the ones that I would buy.
Yeah, well, they're expensive. They're
You
expensive.
give them criteria, you just say, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I don't get it.
If it was easy, everybody would do it, you know? I mean, look how many people are in this room, right? I mean, how many people live in Fort Royal?
But, you know, you also get all these television ads where we'll sell your house, we'll buy your house in 7 days,
Yeah.
which means cheap.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna
do
say
they make
something.
that much money?
Here's the
They
thing,
must.
don't watch TV, spend your time looking for places. Sorry. Watch TV in like a long time,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's
Do
pretty
something
trash.
else. Yeah.
Hey, you have a question? Sorry, I didn't skip
I
over.
just wanted to see if Dave could elaborate on one of you, dealing with that first lien on a owner finance.
Yep.
Are you refinancing or just paying off that first mortgage, or what are you doing? What are some creative ways?
Well, yeah, so I think you're maybe mixing it up with a sub-2 type scenario. So like when you're buying something with true seller financing, like you're gonna be absolving all of the debts that are on the property today, right? You're gonna be redeeding the property, there's gonna be new deed of trust structure that's gonna be on the property. So in the situation you're talking about where you're gonna get a first deed of trust from the seller, most oftentimes the seller owns the property outright, right?
Okay.
Because they're not gonna have an underlying mortgage that they have to pay off, or maybe they have a nominal one. One of the situations Charlie mentioned that I bought, and helped them with, they only had a HELOC as their first deed of trust, and she only owed $10,000 on it. So I did get a seller first deed of trust on the acquisition of that property. I paid the $10,000 because I went ahead and paid off the HELOC as part of the closing of the transaction, so that would free up the title at that point. But yeah, look, we want to make sure we compartmentalize this away from the sub-2, because in a sub-2 scenario, you're going to take deed and ownership of the property subject to underlying financing that's still going to stay in the seller's name, and the seller is still going to be, on their credit, and then you're going to set up like an escrow account with a local bank that you're both going to have access to, that your payments are going to go into, and mortgage payments are going to go out of. So that's going to be a different type of structure than a true seller finance. Yes.
I'm aggressively paying off my house through the debt consolidation software that you know about. and I have about 80,000 left on a $450,000 value. The reason I'm doing that, and everybody, including my CPA, thinks I'm stupid, is because I want a cash register. I want to turn around, I already have a massive HELOC on the house, but can you imagine going into the scenarios where he finds a motivated seller and you just buy the house for cash? Just
Yes,
you know,
so I don't mean to cut you off, I know we want to get to the negotiating the deals, but what I will say to your point is, that's absolutely correct. You can do that a number of different ways. You can do it through a private money lender, you can do it through a private investor, you can do it through your own equity that you have in one or more properties. I mean, that whole BRRRR method that you're talking about, there's a lot of different ways to be able to do that as long as you can get access to the cash, right? So, I mean, I think that's part of what we're talking about tonight in the creative finance stuff is how to get access to the cash. Just know that there's a lot of different ways to get access to the cash. Every single one of those really has one thing in common, and it should be OPM, right? Other people's money. Even in your scenario where you're borrowing it from your HELOC, that's technically not your money until you sell your house. You're borrowing it from the bank. You're just leveraging it out of the walls of your house. So, yes, I mean, you definitely can do that. I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, but the
yes.
advantage is, I don't know how many of you have dealt with a bank, but it takes weeks, 2-3 weeks, oftentimes to get conventional banks to dick around with you. And I'm just so beyond that anymore, and I just want to, and he also uses some other cash value whole life policies to be the banker. There's so many damn things you can do.
All right, bringing you in.
I just wanted to share.
Yes, I'm
I
bringing you in.
would say that my favorite way to do that is to use whole life insurance. That's my favorite way to do that, but that's just the thing. Because I don't feel like I like leverage, and everybody likes to use leverage to make money. That's what a mortgage is, and then you don't pay. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation can obviously go a million different ways here with what we're talking about, but I want to get tactical on negotiating. So when you guys are sitting down at the table or talking to an agent, let's talk about that, kind of that initial conversation, either with the seller, preferably with the seller. What kinds of questions are you asking up front? What kind of questions are you never not asking? And then what are maybe some mistakes that people make in these situations, or questions that they ask, things to stay away from? So what are the ones that you never miss, and what are the ones that you try to stay away from? Anybody?
I'll let you take it.
I would say the biggest thing you want to get from the conversation when you first talk to them is, what is their motivation? Like, why do they need to sell? They may not even feel comfortable telling you, because they might be upset that they have to sell, like, they're getting foreclosed on for like medical debt or something. So just let them talk, sort of, and very gently redirect them, because you don't want to offend them or make them feel.
What are some ways that you get these types of difficult questions? Because they are difficult questions to ask sometimes.
I mean, I just listen to them. I will sit and just listen to them. I'm not going to go and listen to you for an hour if I thought I could do that. If you don't want me to listen to you, that's fine too. But I'm going to find out why somehow.
Yeah, I have a little bit different approach.
Go ahead.
So my approach really is more, I want to disarm them right out the gate. So when I sit down to talk with somebody, there's two things. The one is I try to engage in some small talk, right? Just to try to find a common denominator or something that they're interested in, so we can just kind of get them talking and kind of just somewhat disarm them. But I think when it comes to the point about the questions and the uncomfortableness, for me, I'm very upfront about it, and I tell people, like, I'm interested in purchasing your property. You're interested in selling your property. In order for me to determine whether we can put a transaction together that creates a win for you and a win for me, I'm going to have to ask you some questions that you're going to feel are none of my business. And if at any point in time you're uncomfortable with answering those questions, that's fine, we can be done. But I need you to understand that the reason I'm asking these questions is because I have to make sure that I can formulate an offer that is going to work for me, that I think is going to be something that would interest you. So if you're willing to indulge me, let's have a conversation. At the end of the day, we're just having a conversation. There's nobody making a commitment tonight on anything. Let's just get it all out there, let's air it out, and let's see if I can help you. If I can't help you and at the same time help myself, then at least we will have tried. Right? And so that's the way I approach it. I'm just very straightforward. I have a background in sales, and for me, the number one thing you have to do in sales is immediately you have to disarm your client, prospect, so that they don't feel like you're trying to sell them something. So I always go to a multi-step approach anytime that I'm selling any product or service throughout my adult life. Put your checkbook away. Tonight we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? And we're going to figure out if this thing's going to work. We'll have a separate conversation about it if we think that it's going to work. But for tonight, let's just have a casual conversation. Let's figure out a way to do it. Right? And you're going to have multiple conversations, multiple meetings with people. If you're going to get it across the finish line, and you may figure out in that first meeting, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to walk out the door, man. The takeaway close, old school Columbo, right? By the way, as you're walking out the door, right? The most important question of the night is the ones you ask as you're leaving.
To your first point too, I call in, and I've got, we're gonna give away a couple copies of this book. David Sandler, You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike. One of my favorite sales books, but he calls it setting an upfront contract, right? Which is what you're talking about. Hey, look, if we're gonna do a deal together, here's what I need, and here's how I'm going to, treat you, and here's how we're gonna do business together if we're able to come to a mutually, agreeable terms. But I need to know the answers to the questions that I'm asking. It's important for me to understand the situation so that we can best craft a solution that's going to solve your problem. So we call it setting an upfront contract. That's kind of how I look at that.
Well, and a lot of times you get that as just a vibe from someone too. Because, like you said, how they answer and how they behave really sets the stage for it.
And that's where some of that small talk comes in. I know there was a house that I bought in Strasburg a number of years ago, and it was an on-market property. And because I'm not a realtor, I still door knocked them even though it was an on-market property. And I introduced myself to the wife. The husband was at work, blue-collar worker. And so we had a nice little conversation for probably about 15 minutes at the door. And then I set up a time to come back and meet with her and the husband. Of course, the realtor still wasn't going to be there. It was just going to be a casual conversation. So, we go in that Saturday evening, wherever, we're just kind of sitting around the kitchen table. They had kind of given me just a little tour of the house, just very briefly. And I noticed that downstairs in their family room where they had this full-size pool table, they had a full-size Battlestar Galactica Cylon, like full size, right? And if you know what a Cylon is, you're dating yourself. So anyway, tabletop conversation at the kitchen, and he's drinking a couple of, Jack and Cokes, and he's just kind of like relaxing on a Saturday night. And I bring up the Cylon. Well, that spins us into an hour-long conversation on cosplay. Anybody here know what cosplay is? So I got to hear about how they dressed up as Shrek and Fiona and went to this fair and all this different stuff, right? 3 Jack and Cokes later, not me, him, right? I had a 1-page agreement with me. We put pen to paper, and I put that property under contract, and I knew it was already listed with a realtor, so I knew the contract was not valid, except for the fact that in their mind, they made a commitment to me that they were willing to sell this property to me. I agreed to pay list price on the property. I agreed to finance 15% of it on a 3-year balloon. Why did I pay list price? Because it was
your terms.
My terms. Exactly. But my point is that it took me an hour and a half of just sitting around shooting the bull about something that I really wasn't interested in to get them to realize that I was on the same side of the negotiation table as they were, right? I was there to try to help them sell their house. There was more to that story, but at the end of the day, I didn't buy the house. I had to work for it because the realtor tried to kill the deal. But the point is the small talk. Disarm people, get to know who they are as a person, not just a transaction, and be genuine with it. I'm genuinely interested in Battlestar Galactica. I grew up watching, right? So, it was a genuine conversation that we had. I didn't realize it was going to spin off into cosplay, but it did. So I just rolled it.
How do you deal with realtors, or do you just build in the 6%? Because I don't want to deal with a realtor, I know more than they do. And, you know.
The realtors are a necessary evil, so if you're dealing with an on-market property, you're gonna deal with realtors. And to his point earlier, I mean, if I can deal with just the listing agent and I can try to negotiate my buyer's agent commission back as a seller concession, I'm gonna do it. But, I have a good relationship with a good buyer's agent that I've used in the Winchester area for a long time. And if they're not willing to negotiate with me on the commission, then I just basically tell them, well, you're not getting it either way, because I'm gonna have Graham write this up and we'll submit you off. So either way, you're not getting 6%. You're either gonna give me a 3% seller concession, or you're gonna give 3% to my friend, because he's my friend and I'm just gonna have him write that he's my buyer's agent. And so, I mean, I do get a little bit of pushback, to that, because the realtor, I think sometimes they tend to feel like it's their show,
Exactly.
right? And so,
They're getting the feel.
don't be afraid to push back on a realtor like that, because you're bringing them biscuits and gravy, man. I mean, really, they don't have to do any work, you're gonna buy the property, I mean, and they're getting 3%, basically just writing up a deal, I mean, that's gravy train, honestly. So, but you just don't be afraid to push back to ask for it.
Well, I like what you said with offering them their selling price. That's how I bought my current home, but I got terms and I did a home inspection and found $35,000 of material defects that the listing agent, who was also the owner, stupid, didn't disclose, and I took them to cleaners on that. And
There's more than one way to get a discount, and that was what I was mentioning earlier. I mean, seller concessions is a great way to get a discount because it's a full list price on the contract. And psychologically, they're selling it for list price.
Yeah.
I mean, all day long, I've been able to get $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 seller concessions, on a full price offer. It's a great tactic to use.
Anything to add, negotiation?
I think what you said, basically what everyone does, be authentic, be compassionate, be empathetic. It goes a long way.
I think at the end, you mentioned about empathetic, I think at the end of the day, it has to be a win-win.
A win-win situation.
It has to be. If you go in there and you think that I'm gonna take advantage of a situation, honestly, shame on you.
Well, also, they'll know. They might not really outright, but they will consciously feel it. And so it's not beneficial. And if you are that way, then you probably aren't going to buy the house or the property anyway. And
Yep.
worst case,
It's better to go slow and steady when it's the race and build your portfolio over 3 times the right way. You build a solid foundation, you build a reputation that people can trust and they're willing to go to you and refer people to you. We talked before about, you were asking about, like how you find properties. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier, and I've done it, multiple times, is using bird dogs, right? And you guys familiar with the term bird dog? So people that are in your circle of influence, then they find a property and they refer you over to it, pay them if you close a transaction, right? I mean, I've paid him 2 different times, right? $1,000. He gave me 2 different deals that I closed. My son, my own son, I've paid him 2 different times, not that one, my oldest son, for 2 different deals that he found for me. One property that's in Linden and then one that is in Harper's Ferry, which we've since sold and made over $250,000 on 6 years old. Right? But I paid him on both of those. So if you pay them, I give $1,000 bird dog fee, reasonable people, some give $500, whatever it is. But reward them for finding a deal for you. Because at the end of the day, you just build it into the transaction and they're gonna wanna find more deals for you, honestly. And that's guaranteed ROI for you. I mean, how much are you spending in marketing, mailing out letters and doing all these different things and you're just taking a shotgun approach versus you pay somebody for a closed transaction, that's guaranteed return on investment on that $1,000 in marketing.
You know who are really great bird dogs too? Motivated sellers. I have this conversation with every seller that I work with, whether I work with them or not, is like, hey, if you know of anybody, these people are already maybe financially distressed, people that are financially distressed. I'm like, hey, you know anybody, you hear of anybody, have any friends or family that have a property they need to sell, let me know, and I'll pay you $1,000, $5,000, depending on the opportunity, like, I'm gonna take care of those people always.
And the same can be for renters too, honestly.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a buy and hold investor, I have a lot of rental property. So, I mean, I will pay for referrals for somebody that I rent to. Because otherwise, if I hire a realtor to go find me a new tenant, they're gonna charge me a month of rent. And if I'm renting out a house for $3,700, do I wanna pay $3,700? Or do I wanna pay a $500 per dog fee for a rental? I'll take the $500, please.
Any questions from the group? It is 7:30. I want to have some time for networking. We could go on and talk about negotiating probably for the rest of the night if we wanted to, but do we have any questions from anybody about anything we've discussed or anything we haven't discussed thus far?
Facebook groups in terms of focus networking within Facebook groups. Of course, Dave's offered, asked me to come to a couple of these, and this is the first time I've been able to. But do you have any recommendation for their various Facebook groups or messenger content with contacting your friends network? You know, I've got 1,400 people in my Facebook account, and maybe just some kind of message to generally send to them. Any kind of recommendation for groups?
I mean, if you're talking about what is on your own news feed, it's just genuinely talking about what you're doing. You know, it's gotta be genuine. If you're looking for something, just tell people what you're looking for. Just post out there and say, hey, I'm looking for a 3-2 single family home within 20 minutes of the Winchester surrounding area. You know, if you guys know anybody that's looking to sell, let me know. You know, I mean, I think it's once again about authenticity. You know, just talk about what you do. For me, I do it, you know, and I've had some people that have definitely, indirectly, I've gotten feedback over the years from certain people that are on my social media that will say that I'm braggadocious about things that I do, right? And guess what? They are not my target audience. I don't care what they say. My target audience are the people that are reaching out to me on direct message that are saying, I have a question for you about this deal that I'm trying to work out, and I just would love to get some insight from you. Do you have some time to grab coffee or lunch or whatever it is, right? Those are the people that we're reaching out to, because they're the ones that are going to show up in meetings like this, right? That's going to be that core circle that you're going to build when you're putting those things out on social media. So, as far as groups to get involved with, and I mean, I'm not going to target you, but since you asked it, I'm going to say it to you. Like, you need to get your butt into these groups on a regular basis. Like, I mean, Winchester, Wednesday is coming up. They got their luncheon at Golden Corral, second Wednesday of the month, 11:30 to 1. Like, be there. The Martinsburg I-81 group, they meet once a month. What's it, Tuesday or Thursday night, I forget, the third, whatever. Frederick County, Maryland, they meet the same week that Martinsburg does. They meet, one meets Tuesday, one meets Thursday. Hagerstown's got a group. They got a group going right now. I think Pace Morley's group's got something going in Arlington tonight while this is going on. You know, so I mean, it's about how bad do you want it. Honestly, and that's not targeting you specifically. It's just asking everybody, how bad do you want it? Like she said before, turn the TV off.
Yeah,
You know?
I would say that the people that were telling you you're bragging, they're just not your people. And that's about it. I would say talk to everybody on Facebook. I met him on Facebook. I will talk to anybody on any kind of social media. So if I like what you're putting out or if I learn about this, I will just message you. I don't care. And if I don't have time to do it, I will have a VA do it. So I have a VA that does my social media because I don't have time to do that. But he doesn't do like outreach for me. He just posts stuff. Just talk to people. Don't be afraid to tell people what you do at work or any place else. Do the grocery store, just be a talkie. That's what I say.
Some people that put signs on their car.
Yeah, you can put signs on your car, that might not do that. You can post signs, they don't do that.
You can write off your car.
Mike, what's up?
How would you, say you make a call on a lead, how would you pivot if the person has since died?
Oh, well, I would just say, hey, I'm really sorry to hear about that. That's really unfortunate. How are you doing with that? And see if they want to talk about that. See if they want to talk about how they're doing. And then if you wanna ask them about the house, just be like, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. I would just say, what are y'all gonna do with the property? Is that a problem for you, or do you need any help with it? So, is there any way that I can help you? And if they say no, just say thank you, and then do what Mike says, if you have anybody else that you know of, that way. You just have ways to do it, like, anywhere you go. Hey, you go to the grocery store, this is what I do. Hey, you go to the Target, this is what I do. So, when my kids were little, when they were in grade school, I started a business, a pickle stand and lemonade stand at the farmer's market. And we would sell, like, tell everybody that walks by, hey, do you want some lemonade? Hey, do you want some pickles? And I made a livable wage doing that for 5 summers. Okay, I made like $50,000. I busted my ass. And I showed my kids how to bust my ass, and that's just what you gotta do. You just gotta be like, out there, relentless. Relentless is the word. That's the word.
Good question, Mike.
Just be empathetic.
That actually happened to me.
Yeah.
They hung up on me, so.
Oh, then just, say I'm sorry.
Well, they hung up right away.
Yeah.
That's one step closer to yes.
Yep.
They answered.
Call them back. Put them on a list and call them back later.
Yeah, a lot of it, to that point, honestly, a lot of it is timing, because you don't know when this person passed away, you don't know if it was last week or last month or yesterday. So like, if you know that there's an opportunity, potentially, a lot of it just comes down to timing when you're talking to somebody. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're going through stages of grief, and you talk to them, yesterday, and they tell you to screw off, but you call them, in 2 weeks, and they're, maybe you catch them at a better time, and you can actually have a conversation with somebody. The key is not to get too hung up on any one lead, though. Like, there's so many opportunities, to David's point, like, that no is just one step closer to a yes. You just gotta keep that mentality. A lot of it is mindset and consistency and persistency and being relentless.
Don't get emotionally involved in any one particular house. Even your own house. It's just a house.
Some of the general just like tactics behind identifying opportunities is, this is a big one, is like, don't get too stuck on one opportunity. Don't, analysis paralysis, like don't sit there and analyze a deal and say, oh, you think this is a deal, and you're sitting there and you're crunching numbers. Well, it's not a deal until you've had a conversation with somebody. So step one is pick up the phone and have a conversation, whether it's an agent or a seller or knocking on the door, whatever you gotta do. Then you have an opportunity potentially. So many people get stuck in like the analysis paralysis of just looking at what they think are deals, because they drove for dollars, or they're searching properties on MLS and underwriting them and figuring out what it's going to look like when I flip this property, and you're just wasting your time. You got to go out there and do the action, have the conversation with people.
And one thing I will say, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
So like, what are the most common things you guys see in the negotiations that don't work out?
Great question.
The seller is kind of like, if you talk to them and meet them in person, the seller is kind of, they give you a bad vibe. I don't mean to use that word again, but you just doesn't feel right.
So like your gut feeling?
Yeah, like your gut feeling. Like it's same with like if you're getting a tenant, or if you're doing business with somebody, anything. If it just doesn't feel right, you got to listen to that. That's the most important thing, because you have to do business with that person for the term of your business, right? Like say I have a partner and we're buying a building together. You have to do business with that person for the time that we own that building. That could be 5, 8 years, That's the thing you got to think about, because they're not going to change. Every person is the way they are. That's just what it is.
Okay.
That's just what it is. If they lie to you and you find out, or you get complained about, that's probably not a good idea either. But like that gut feeling, it's a gut feeling.
Okay, thank you.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, what I would say is either lack of motivation or just lack of wanting to sell a property, or needing to sell a property. We're looking for people that need to sell a property, not want to sell. Like I take, if somebody made me the right offer. That's no motive. The second you hear that, is like, okay, I'm moving on to the next person because this person doesn't have any motivation. So there's got to be some level of motivation, whether it's financial or physical or whatever. That's what we're searching for. And you're going to talk to a lot of people that, you know, I'd sell my house for the right price, people. And a lot of people are going to spend a lot of time trying to force a deal into those conversations when there's no motivation. There's no motivation, there's no deal. So you want to look for motivation. That's the number one thing. And that can look a lot of different ways. We've talked about many of the ways people can be motivated. But if you're trying to force deals upon people that, you know, oh, I'd sell my house for the right price, or, you know, just make me an offer, that's another one you're going to hear all the time. It's like, okay, this person's not motivated. The motivated conversations that you have with motivated sellers are going to be very drastically different from those conversations. They're going to be selling you the house, basically.
When people call me on the phone like that, and they want to buy my house, I give them a price. I give them 10% above the market value that I know, because I know the market value of all my properties. And then I'm like, let me know when I hang up. So
yeah, and you don't hear from that person.
You don't hear from them. Well, sometimes I do. Sometimes they'll call me back a year later, and I'm like,
if they're good, you would.
The price went up to this now. But I mean, like, you'll, if you find somebody that's motivated, that's good. But you have to make sure they get a decent buy, not a bad buy.
So what my answer to that question, she mentioned earlier that you gotta make a lot of offers, right? So, you know, in sales, you know, the no leads you one step closer to a yes. And once upon a time when I was doing a lot of telemarketing sales, you know, in the early 2000s, you'd have a sheet of paper and we would just have like number 1 through 250, and we would cross over every time we got a no, right? And we'd have a separate section down there that would be a maybes and then the yeses, and you would track those numbers, right? And your goal was to just try to get as many no's as you possibly could, because you know ratio-wise, you're gonna get some people that are gonna be interested. Statistically, it's gonna happen, right? So I would say in this business, how do you do that? For me, and it's probably changed some over the years, but emails for me, like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, different places where you find alt-market properties. I would send a lot of emails to people, and I would basically just have kind of like 2 sentences, and it would say something to the effect of, you know, I'm interested in the property that you have listed for sale by an owner on Craigslist, and I'm curious, would you consider any seller financing for all or part of the purchase price, either long or short term? Thank you for your time, have a great day. And that's it, that would be, and out it would go. And you would be amazed at some of the variations of responses that I would get, right? And you could gauge interest level by what those responses were. If somebody tells you to sand or gives you some other expletive reply in your email, then you know that's a no, right? But if you get somebody that's like, well, what were you thinking? Now you got somebody who's willing to play ping pong, right? And you smack the ball back and you give them an idea, and then let them come back with you. My first land sales contract that I bought in 2013 in Lynchburg, you've been to that house, the one there that I was there, right? That's how I bought that house, from Craigslist, and from sending emails just like that. And when that one was, you know, he replied and was kind of like, well, what are you thinking? And it developed into a land sales contract that I put on the property, and then we closed on it a year later, right? So I didn't know that he was interested in doing that. I just kept asking people. And I can't tell you how many people that replied no or some derivative thereof during that time period when I was looking at buying that first house in Lynchburg. Because we had a reason. Our kid was at the college down there, and he needed to live in town full time because he was an aviation student, needed to fly around. So I had a motivation for why I needed to buy a house, because I don't want to rent something, right? So what was the motivator? The motivator was I needed to get this house for my own reasons, right? So in that scenario, I would tell you, whatever way you go about doing it, it is just about continuing to ask that question, until somebody says something other than no. And when they say something other than no, the radar goes up. And now it's like, okay, now what do I do? What's step 2?
Well, then like you evaluate the property and see if it's a deal you want. property that you want, and see how it goes from there. If it's super, if it isn't, next one.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, that all kind of ties back into taking action. Like, what are you doing with your time? He uses the analogy frequently about you have 5 frogs sitting on a log. If 3 of them decide to jump off, how many are left? All 5 of them, because just because you decide to do something doesn't mean you've actually done it. So seeing, like, evaluate for yourself, where are you spending your time? Are you making these calls? Are you doing these emails? Are you reaching out, looking on MLS, whatever you're doing? Are you putting in the legwork to find these deals or no? So.
I'm gonna say what they said, it's really not easy, it's not like they just appear.
Right.
It's work, like it's really serious work, you gotta be into it, like, you have to be motivated. So, it's a job, but it's a hobby that's a job.
Like totally off topic, but just a question seriously. Has anybody here ever been salmon fishing for like sockeye salmon? Two have, so two can relate to this. So when the sockeye salmon are spawning, they do not hit. They do not take the bait, right? So you have to be good fly fishermen in order to catch a sockeye salmon when it's swimming up the Russian River or the Kenai River if you're in Alaska. Why? Because they're not feeding. So you have to be able to put that fly and drift that fly into that pocket where that salmon is and bring it across its mouth and snag it in the mouth, because it has to be a legal hook in order for you to land that fish and keep it. That is the same as doing real estate investing. 100%. They're not biting. You got to go out and you have got to get good at your skill to where you can actually snag the ones you want and you can land them.
I'm gonna say one thing, because there's lots of ladies in the room, we have a benefit in that men don't expect us to be thinking or talking about this. So we get more information out of them because they don't think that we understand the process, know what we're doing, insert whatever we want here. It's easier to get that information from people because you can disarm people easier. And I'm not being manipulative, I'm just saying. When I come up to you, you're gonna be like, oh, you just look like some girl, you don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. You can tell me whatever, I'm gonna be able to get more information because I can just sit here and listen, right? But it's easier to get information, so you get information better and you can relate to people better, and so just keep that in mind. My husband calls it the small Q discount. We get the small Q discount because we can just ask for it. So take advantage of that.
I agree. I think that's fair.
You need to walk around like a cat and be like, yes.
But seriously, take advantage of it. It doesn't matter your age, because I'm 50. You can do that at any age, you know? Just saying.
Dave has this hilarious laugh whenever we're sharing deals with each other. We got this thing between us where we'll be, and look all groovy like, you know, with a green visor and
TMI.
Yeah.
Sorry for the video, you have to edit that out.
All right, any other questions? Anything, any ahas, anything anybody wants to share before we kind of break for networking?
I got one more thing.
Yes.
You were talking earlier about like when you're making deals, something that I was thinking about is if you're talking to this person, you know, like you're first sitting down with them, talking about a deal on the house and whatever, and like we're looking for how can we help them, like for him it was capital gains and stuff like that. If you're new to this and you don't really know, I mean, something you can utilize is ChatGPT, AI in general. Tell them, hey, like I'm just gonna record this conversation, like so I can go back and listen to it so I don't miss anything, and then you can give that straight to AI and be like, hey, what did I miss? Like what can I look for? How can I help these people, and utilize that. So.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is to come to meetups like this so you get education, so you know what to think about or what to go and do on your own. Because some people might feel leery of being recorded, and they might not think that's the best thing to do.
Unless you live in a one-party state.
Anything else? Thoughts, questions? Ahas?
Sure, one more. So like not like, let's say, it's not like motivated sellers, just all of real estate in general. Like, I'm gonna assume just because there's a lot of experience in this room, like what are the common themes? Again, of people that are like trying to victimize you in some way. Like they're trying to sell you something that's broken, stuff like that.
Well, I would say if somebody in real estate is trying to scam you, I feel like they're going to be, like, overly friendly, they're extra, right? You know how narcissists, they say narcissists love on you? That's the same thing if somebody's trying to sell you some crazy stuff in real estate. Now, if somebody knows something is damaged, like their house, they, may not want to tell you about it. That I don't know. I mean, that would
Well, that's why we have,
inspections
and contingencies.
things like that.
A lot of the times, once you gain experience, you're able to walk through a property, or you bring your contractor with you to walk through a property to make sure that there's no red flags. But we have protections in our agreements that allow us to, if we feel the need, bring in an inspector, bring in a contractor, for 7 days or whatever. So we want to make sure that we're protected in those situations where maybe we're getting a strange, a lot of this is being perceptive too, and being able to read people and being able to kind of get vibes, the vibe. It is true because, you walk into some situations or you deal with agents a lot of the times that, may not be giving you the full truth. So you have to be perceptive, and you have to make sure you're protected too.
Or they may not even know, right? Because
They may not know.
Example, I have this place I wanted to buy in Woodbridge, since I live over there, right? And there was, in the end, what I think was there was a foundation issue with a condo. And I think there was an assessment that the owner didn't tell the agent about, right? So the agent didn't know. But there is language in the offer in the contract to get out of it.
Oh, and I had a person over at this table, I think they had a question, I just began speaking over them. Do you still have that?
Any other questions? Thank you for another good question.
Just real quick,
Wanna add
you
something?
mentioned something about inspections earlier. So, what I would tell you, I've been doing this 20 years. Just about every home that I purchase, I get a home inspection. I have a construction background, right? I can walk through and I can look at the major things myself, right? But I will tell you, it's well spent a few $100s to have a home inspection done because they're going to be very thorough and they're going to look at things that honestly I'm not going to take time to look at, like double tap breakers, for example, in the panelists, right? And there's a lot of other different things that we can use as an example. But time is money, right? And for me, my time is worth more than me spending 4 to 6 hours being thorough to do a home inspection at a property site. I'd rather pay a professional to do it and give me a report because I have other things to do with my time, right? And they're going to be more thorough than I'm going to be. I'm still going to walk through, like just about every time I do an inspection, I'm on site for part of the inspection. I'm very rarely there the whole time. I'm there just long enough to kind of meet with them. What are your thoughts, whatever kind of thing. And I do a visual kind of walkthrough myself, and then I wait for the report to come back. So your mileage may vary. When I spoke in the Martinsburg group, last month, there was a couple people that basically said they kind of do their own inspections. I would advise against it, honestly. Even if you're not having a contingency in your contract subject to satisfactory home inspection, because like this last property that I just purchased, the one I told you about down in Lynchburg, I did home inspection for information purposes only. I was buying the house either way, right? But I still did it because I wanted to have it, right? And so I would just make the recommendation that, even if you are a professional, put a value on your own time and sub it out, honestly, and have them look at it. If you want to be on site for part of the time, look at it with them, that's fine. But they're going to be way more detailed than the average person is going to be. I can assure you that. I had a new construction home that we just built in 2022 down in Davenport, Florida, so a vacation rental property. And on a brand new home, I had a pre-purchase home inspection from a home inspection company down there. And they found so many things that I had to have fixed before settlement, and it delayed settlement as a result of it, because this was a new build that we had done. So they checked stuff that I would have never in a million years checked. They were much more thorough, and especially in that situation, because it was absentee, because I was in Virginia and had them do it. I mean, rather than my realtor walking through with me on a video call, and we're doing our little visual walkthrough and inspection prior to settlement, that would have done jack for me compared to what that home inspection report did. So I would encourage all of y'all to do it. $300 to $500 typically is the average cost for home inspection, and it's money well spent.
Well, I think too, one thing I was gonna say was, this is where you need a good list of service providers that you trust, because there are some home inspectors that are good, and there are some that are average, and there are some that maybe don't want to inspect your house. So you might want to ask realtors, ask other people, title companies, anybody in the real estate business,
People in your networking group.
people in a networking group, anybody, because like, I've only bought one house, without an inspection, without any contingency, but that's because I wanted it for a separate reason. But I spent my time really through it.
I've got to bring up this point since Dave brought it up. Dave strongly encouraged me in 2015 when I bought my house to do a home inspection. I'm an electrical engineer by schooling, so I'm like, I don't need that. He strongly encouraged it. I paid Bill Pfeiffer $600 and another friend who's a structural engineer to come out and look at my house. I offered them full price offer. Again, give them their price, I get my terms. I took the house off the market, and here's why this is important. I took the house off the market for 10 days to do all my inspections, and I came back with a laundry list of material defects of $30,000 that it would take to fix if I had a contractor do it. The guy who's selling the house was a realtor, and he must disclose material defects. He didn't. Bottom line is, I put him over the barrel, and I said, I will attach this home inspection report with these engineering reports to the title of your house, home. I'll file, he was pissed at me. And I said, I'm gonna make sure that the next owner knows about these material defects if you don't sell the house to me for $170,000. He wanted $200,000, it was well worth $200,000. But when I went in to do my home inspection, he had taken all the stuff out, moved to his next house, and he thought the thing was a done deal. Very successful county in town, stupid. And his bottom line is that I went through and also asked for a $10,000 concession, Dave's suggestion, okay, and I walked away net $160 with a home inspection or with a warranty in there that I didn't want because it had a 30-day return allowance for $4,500. So not only do I do a whole USDA loan with 100% financing, but I got $10,000 in closing costs, covering points and covering the home warranty. And then 15 days later, I turned in the home warranty for a refund and got $4,500 out of the house, and I got it for 100% financing. Total home run. I mean, every single thing Dave suggested I do, I did. And that's what you need when you're working these deals. Is somebody, Dave, with 20 years of experience, I don't make a move until I talk to him.
Quiet guys will talk just a second before we
Pipe in,
break for networking. I just
We've got you over there.
I think the biggest takeaways, if I was going to summarize at least my takeaways, is every seller is a motivated seller. I buy houses, I deal with wholesalers. They're motivated. Find their motivation, see what they're, call it their pain or their button or whatever it is that they're trying to press through that they need satisfied. And that's going to be your trigger. Listen to what they got to say. The wholesaler calls me, I got a house, here's what we're, I can easily identify what their motivation is, and then we can close the deal. So look at your demographic, look for your buyer, your seller. If you're the motivated buyer, know your market, know what you're dealing with. Go up and down the streets. We hear a lot of good things spread across a lot of talk tonight. But the summary is really good, that if you're focusing in on your demographic, knowing what you're looking for, realize how to solve their problems, be their solution, you'll close the deal. And a lot of times numbers look like and all the jibber jabber that goes along with it, but really just tools it to dial it in and listen. Listen to what you're looking for and then pull the trigger. Thank you guys. I think we can tie it up in about.
It's like what your partner says, make a list and mark it to the list.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Make the list, call the list, mark it to the list. All right, cool. What, do we have one or two more slides? What is there, what's the, join grid Facebook? Somebody was asking about groups. Grid Facebook, Shenandoah, Grid Shenandoah Facebook. We have a local group where we, announce events and deals and resources.